Okay. See, I don't know about that, but
Taking benefit out of it.
I see. Inshallah khair.
I buy my family all the.
Oh, mashallah, mashallah. That's good.
Everybody's fan of it.
Allah barak feek. Astaghfirullah. Alrighty. Salam alaikum. Inshallah, we'll get started, please. Whoever is gonna hang out with us, they can move forward, inshallah.
Request for brother Muhammad Amin Khan, 6 year surgery
Oh, okay.
at the end.
Can you remind me though?
Inshallah, I will.
Because too many things are going on in my head right now. Bismillah. Wa alaikum salam. How are you? Allah barak feek. ويكرمك. كيف الحال؟ الحمد لله. بسم الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم يسر وعن برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. How's everyone doing this evening? Good, inshallah? Allah barik fikum. Alhamdulillah, that it is Allah's blessing that He brings us here to get some barakah and rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we learn about the Sahaba of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. As you know, some people try to undermine the Sahaba and belittle of their value. And we know that is only going to undermine the deen because they are the one who carried the deen to us. So it's very important for us to learn about their lives, take lessons from that, and know the reality, and then that will give a clear idea of what's wrong or what's inaccurate about those people, about those Sahaba radiallahu anhum. So we've had a lecture last month about Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, and it was about his life with the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So this part 2 will talk more about his khilafah, him as a khalifa of the Muslimin after the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Of course, as we all know, when the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam became sick due to a strong fever, and he couldn't get out to pray as an imam, lead the Sahaba in the salah. The Prophet ﷺ ordered that Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu be the imam. Although his daughter Aisha radiyallahu anha and the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam suggested to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that her father is too emotional, and he's going to be, the fact that he's standing in the place of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to make him remember the Prophet alaihi wasallam, and it's going to make him emotional, and he's going to cry, and no one's going to hear him reading. So then she said, let Umar lead the prayer. Then say the Prophet ﷺ was not happy. He repeated again, Muru Aba Bakr falyusalli bin nas. So he re-emphasized. So then she told him something similar. Then he said, tell Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu. So 2 times. Then she told Hafsa radiyallahu anha, the daughter of Sayyidina Umar, I'm afraid my father, he's going to get emotional there. And so maybe tell the Prophet to let your dad, yani Sayyidina Umar. The Prophet insisted again, Muru Aba Bakr falyusalli bin nas. So then they know there's no way around. So they knew, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum saw in this as a sign that the Prophet ﷺ would love Sayyidina Abu Bakr to be the Khalifa. However, he did not literally say that for very simple reasons. There was no wahi. Allah did not give him wahi to tell him to officially announce him as the next Khalifa. Because also the Prophet ﷺ wanted them to select someone based on their virtue and merit. You know, like a lot of times in different places, leaders are not selected based on their merits and qualifications. They're selected based on other things. Long list, you know what they are. But that's the khulasa. So, but however, the Prophet ﷺ, through that statement, he kind of told them what he would like. But again, he did not force it upon them. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But then he said something very interesting 5 days before he passed away. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That I will never take a khalil, yani a very intimate friend other than my Rabb. And if I were to take a khalil, it would be Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. But that maqam is only for Allah now. So that gave them another hint that Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he is ahead of all of the other Sahaba radiallahu anhum in maqam. So, as you know, Sayyidina Abu Bakr obeyed the command of the Prophet and led the prayer. Then, the day the Prophet passed away, Monday, after Fajr Salah, the Prophet ﷺ removed the curtain from his chamber and he looked at the Muslimin lined up and praying. Now they saw him, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu saw him, and he immediately pulled back because he thought the Prophet ﷺ is going to come out and lead the prayer. And the Muslimun, they almost like, the Rawi said, حَتَّى كَادُوا يَفْتَتِنُوا فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ, يعني they were almost going to say something or leave the prayer. They were so excited to see the Prophet ﷺ, maybe hoping that he's going to come out. But then the Prophet ﷺ, he gave them ishara that continue. And that would be the actual, the last time of salah that the Prophet ﷺ will go through when he was alive. So he will not come out after that. And so that's the end. The end of his matter is approving of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu being the Imam. And later on down the road, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was very intelligent. Because like for people who, because you know, this period is very sensitive in Islamic history. There are some madhahib that form based on the Khalifa and all that stuff, the stuff that happened early on. And about the whole thing between Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib and Sayyidina Abu Bakr. But then Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, it was narrated that he said later that when I saw the Prophet ﷺ selecting Sayyidina Abu Bakr to lead, although there's other Sahaba, including myself, I knew that he chose him for our deen leadership. And it makes sense to choose for our dunya who the Prophet ﷺ chose for our deen. That's it. Done deal. He got the message. Radiallahu anhu. So again, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, basically, as Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu said, the day the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina was the most bright day. But the day he passed away was the darkest and most gloomy day. The entire Medina was sad. People were in shock. They couldn't believe the Prophet ﷺ passed away. What? Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu was in disbelief. He was going around and saying, whoever said the Prophet ﷺ had died is lying. He was in disbelief. He didn't believe that the Prophet ﷺ actually passed away. But again, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the one who just 5 minutes ago I was describing how soft he was and emotional, he turned into a different man. He turned into a man of leadership. Because Sayyidina Abu Bakr, we talked about it last time, he had special way of reading the Quran, yani how? Understanding what's behind the ayahs. That's why when إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ was revealed, he knew this was given a sign that the Prophet ﷺ is going to pass away soon. He was the only one that was able to see that. So when Sayyidina Umar kind of is in disbelief, Sahaba are in shock, they don't know what's going on, Sayyidina Abu Bakr sat behind the steering wheel of the bus of the Muslim society, literally. So the bus was kind of weaving through the road. He immediately sat behind the steering wheel and stabilized it. And Sayyidina Umar was kind of going around and saying these things. Then Sayyidina Abu Bakr held him and said, "Stop it right now. The Prophet ﷺ passed away." And then he got up and he gave a talk. He gave like a short khutbah. And after saying, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, reading the introduction, he said, whoever was worshipping Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then Muhammad has passed away. And whoever is worshipping Allah, then Allah never dies. Oh. And then he read certain ayahs from the Quran. He said, the Prophet ﷺ already, or Allah already gave us a hint of the Prophet ﷺ passing in the future. And he read multiple ayahs from the Quran. إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. You will pass away and they will pass away. وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. Muhammad ﷺ is one of, just like all the other messengers. أَفَإِن مَاتَ. So if he dies, أَوْ قُتِلَ, or gets killed, you're just going to turn away from the deen? انقلبتم على أعقابكم. Really? وَمَن يَنْقَلِبْ عَلَى عَقِبَيْهِ فَلَنْ يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا. Even if you turn away, Allah's not going to be hurt if people leave the deen. So after he said these ayat, Sayyidina Umar said, I swear by Allah's name, as if I've heard them for the first time. What? Although they were in the Quran, they're being read regularly. They've been heard. But he didn't want to believe this. You know, he didn't want to believe the Prophet ﷺ will pass away one day. Because everyone loves the Prophet ﷺ so much. It was such a devastating incident. But then we see the powerful leadership of Sayyidina Abu Bakr. Going from the very emotional person to the person with resolve. With the person with resolve and deep understanding of the realities of the moment. Which is that this was going to happen. And this is the moment. And the Muslim Ummah has to stand on its feet and continue the mission. Not fall down, not lose, not run away. They have to stand on their legs. So as we know, in this period, there was, of course, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he was outside of Medina when the news first broke, and then he came to Medina, and then he went and saw the Prophet ﷺ and kind of uncovered the sheet, saw his face, and then he kind of talked to him in very emotional statements. But then people started thinking, now what? So the idea that the Prophet ﷺ passed away kind of started sinking in, started soaking in. Now what? Who is going to lead now? Because actually, the Prophet ﷺ, throughout his life, in multiple hadith, emphasized the idea of the importance of having an imam. Yani, the Muslim society having a leader and not being on the loose, because it will cause a lot of fitna, division, corruption. There has to be a leader. So then the Ansar radiallahu anhum gathered in a place that is called Saqifatu Bani Sa'ida. It's like kind of a shed. It's like an area with a shed, with what is that called? With like a ceiling, and they sit under to protect them from the sun. So it's a big place where they gather. So they gathered and they were discussing about who's the Khalifa is going to be. And initially, they came up with the idea of appointing Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Ubadah. Now, just to know, Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Ubadah radiallahu anhu, he was one of the asyad of the Ansar. The Ansar radiallahu anhum. There were two main leaders of the Ansar radiallahu anhum. Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, who was a shaheed earlier, before the Prophet passed away. And then there's Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Ubadah radiallahu anhu. So then they kind of thought, okay, now we're back to we'll just appoint our leader, Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Ubadah. So Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Abu Bakr wanted to talk to them and make a decision with them involved, because if there's like two leaders been elected, it's going to cause a chaos, right? If the Ansar say, okay, we select Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Ubadah, and then the Muhajirin radiallahu anhu say we're going to select, let's say, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, you're going to have two leaders. It's going to be a sauce. It's going to be a mess. It's not going to work. So they immediately went, Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar. And I think with them was Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah. So they went there, and then Sayyidina Umar had things in his mind he wanted to say, but then Sayyidina Abu Bakr was like filling in the leadership position in such a way that Sayyidina Umar was kind of afraid to talk. He said, khalas, he's the boss now. So then Sayyidina Abu Bakr talked about the virtue of Al-Ansar and what they've done for the deen, and how much they supported the deen, and how they were the refuge for the Muhajirin and for the Prophet ﷺ. And he praised them. And he gave them credit for all what they've done. But then he told them that the Prophet ﷺ has said before that the leaders should be from Quraysh. Why? Because Quraysh was the respected tribe in Arabia that almost all tribes agree to their leadership. So it was the hikmah of the Prophet ﷺ to mention a tribe that other tribes will agree for them to be a boss, and then they will unite around. Because do not forget that the Arabian society is super tribal, and it's very hard for them to agree on anything. That's why there's so many tribes. Each one has their own boss. So the fact to have one boss, I mean, it was one of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ that they all united around him. Now they have to be able to unite around someone else after him. So then, when Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Ubadah heard that the Prophet ﷺ said the A'imma should be from Quraysh, he agreed to that. And then Sayyidina Umar, so look how humble Sayyidina Abu Bakr. You know what he said? He said, okay. He told the Ansar radiallahu anhum, I am going to select two people, you choose one of them. Then when he told Sayyidina Ubadah that, Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Ubadah, he said, yeah, you're right. You guys are the umara, the leaders, and we're the wuzara. We'll be your visors, and you be the leaders. So we'll work on it together. He said, okay, either Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah or Sayyidina Umar. And they said, no way. No way we will lead when you're with us. So they kind of resolved themselves from that position. They said, no, we'll never do this. When you're around, no. So then Sayyidina Umar, he kind of told Sayyidina Abu Bakr, extend your hand. I am going to give you bay'ah. That means I am going to commit to serve under your command as the leader of the Muslim community, and I'm going to try my best to support you. So then he did. And then the other muhajirin that were there, they also gave bay'ah. Then the Ansar radiallahu anhum, they gave bay'ah as well. That was the initial bay'ah the first day on Monday. This was when? On Monday. Now there's a lot of discussion and things go on. They say, oh, wait a minute. Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib was not there. Sayyidina Zubayr ibn al-Awwam was not there on Monday. And then they understand from that, oh, Sayyidina Ali did not agree. You see, they kind of get this idea. Some people get this idea. Oh, that means he was not happy with it. Hold on. So there's actually two narrations. One of them that he came and pledged or gave bay'ah to Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Zubayr same day. And there's another riwayat that they came the next day. But you might ask, why did they come the next day? That's why. Because they were busy with the janazah of the Prophet ﷺ, preparing things. Don't forget, Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, he is Ibn Ammin Nabi ﷺ and married his daughter. So he's an immediate family, right? Right? And then as Zubayr ibn al-Awwam radiallahu anhu, he is Ibn Ammati Rasulillah ﷺ. So he's a cousin. So those immediate family, it makes sense that they are busy with the kafan and all of that stuff. See? So that's why they were busy on Monday. But then on Tuesday, next day, there was an official bay'ah that was done in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. The first one, the small one, it's almost like giving trust or giving kind of pre-selection, whatever you want to call it, nomination, whatever you want to call it. That happened in Saqifat Bani Sa'ida, but then the bigger one in the masjid. And that involved women, rijal, ansar, muhajirin, radiallahu anhum, even representative from the tribes around Medina. And people will they will get a representative of a tribe and get their pledge, and they are giving the word of their own tribe. They're representing their own people. So again, after the bay'ah was given to Sayyidina Abu Bakr as the Khalifa, radiallahu anhu, he stood up and gave a speech. Maybe about 5 lines. But I'm going to tell you something, brothers and sisters in Islam. This speech is just ajib. You don't hear this stuff anymore. Listen what he said. He said, I have been chosen as a Khalifa upon you, but I'm not the best of you. لَقَدْ وُلِّيتُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَلَسْتُ بِخَيْرِكُمْ. Pay attention. I've been made your leader, but I'm not the best amongst you. If I do good, help me. And if I do bad, guide me. Look at this. إن أحسنت فأعينوني وإن أسأت فقوموني. Obey me as long as I obey Allah regarding you. If I disobey Allah, you don't listen to me. What is this? Who says this anymore? أطيعوني ما أطعت الله فيكم فإن عصيته فلا طاعة لي عليكم. Then listen to the next statement he said. He said, if you are صاحب الحق, you are strong until your haqq is given back to you. And if you are ظالم, then you are weak till the haqq is taken away from you. Look at this. Very powerful words, very straight to the point. Then, Astaghfirullah li wa lakum. Came down the minbar. What? Like half a page? Less. But it has straight to the point what is the method of mu'amala between the Khalifa and the people. That is based on not about personal benefits, not about, hey, I'm the boss. No. About ta'atullah. Very simple. So again, after that, after Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu gave the speech, you can call it the acceptance speech, he was faced with challenges. One of the first challenges that faced Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is the following. Okay, let me draw you an image right now. The main cities in Arabia that were solid in Islam were Mecca and the Medina and At-Taif, and some tribes around Medina. But the north, the Arabian tribes in the north next to the Roman Empire, the Arabian tribes in the south, in Yemen and in Oman, a lot of those tribes got into Islam late. As you know, there was a big wave of tribes entered Islam about 3 years before the Prophet passed away. A lot of those tribes, their iman hasn't been solidified, hasn't been fortified yet. They haven't mingled enough with the Prophet ﷺ to get influenced by his akhlaq and by his teachings, right? So they were very superficial in their Islam. And those tribes, they were impressed by how the Prophet was defeated Quraysh and defeated all of the big names. So they said, you know what? Let's join him. It looks like it's a good idea, you know? Let's just join him. And they joined him. But again, the iman was kind of shaky. Things were not stable. And again, they were far. So they became Muslim late, and then they were far from the center, the strong centers of Islam. So those categories came up, they did mushawara between them, and they came up with some ideas that came along with, all of a sudden, some new prophets start emerging. Some new prophets start showing up here and there. They have 2, 3 prophets, including a lady, that were just showing up and telling their followers that I'm a new prophet now. Because in their aql, in their mind, Islam was tied to Prophet Muhammad SAW himself. So his figure was very powerful. When he left, they said, yeah, no more. But they like the idea of having a prophet, so we'll just make one of our own. You know? And you know, those prophets start showing up. Like Al-Aswad Al-Ansi, one of them is called Musaylim Al-Kadhab. It's in the name, Musaylim the liar. And then there was a woman, her name Sajah. Those were all kind of showing up. And then this Musaylim Al-Kadhab was just like making up the most ridiculous stuff. So basically they told him, how you're a prophet? That doesn't make sense. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, La nabiyya ba'di, there is no prophet after me. He said, yeah, my name is La. Because then the meaning, La is a prophet after me. But La means no. He said, no, my name is La. Then the meaning, La is a prophet after me. They said, what is this? Get out of here, man. Then they said, you know, okay, we had Quran. Rasulullah ﷺ received Quran. What is your Quran? He said, yeah, I got Quran too. He said, really? What is it? He said, we have Surah Al-Fil. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. You know, the surah we have in the Quran. He said, yeah, I also got Surah Al-Fil. They said, what is it? He said, Al-Filu mal-fil, ma adraka mal-fil, lahu jismun kal-barmil, wa khurtumun tawil. It's like comical. He said, the fil, the elephant has a body like a barrel and trunk like a hose. They said, are you serious, man? And ears like flaps. What are you out of here? So then they say, okay, our prophet had miracles. Show us your miracles. He said, okay. Which miracles would you guys like? They said the Prophet ﷺ, there was a well that didn't have much water, and he spat in the well, and Then or he rinsed water in his mouth, spat it in the well, and the well started gushing out with water. There was literally like few buckets left, and an entire army, 1,400 in Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, they filled their canteens and drank water and bathed. He said, okay, I'm going to do it. He went to the well, he spat in it, it dried up completely. Oh, shoot, that didn't work. Then they say, this baby, his eye is sick. He said, okay, I'm going to, he spat in it, he went blind. The baby went blind, Ya Latif. So anyway, so it was kind of backfiring. So they know, okay, something's up, something's not right here. Then the crazy thing is that female Nabiya married that male Nabi. And things went off the rails after that. So anyways, but the whole idea is those mutanabbi'een started showing up here and there. And then they made a crazy announcement. Because you know the zakah system in Islam. So the zakah is just like tax, right? So the government collects the zakah, and then they collect it in one place. It's called Baytul Mal, or it's called Baytul Sadaqah, okay? And then they redistribute on the poor people, right? And they have actual employees that go and physically collect the sheep, the camels, the coins. They collect it and redistribute it. And the system of zakah is a brilliant system because it keeps money moving and it gives a way to pull people out of poverty. And I'll tell you something. If zakah is paid, like today, actually one of the major ulama in the alam al-Islami has done a study on how much would the zakah be now, like around now in 2020 taqriban, approximately. If people were to pay their zakah just from cash and from liquid money, not including property and all of that, and they came up with a number close to $84 billion a year. Do you know what that money can do? $84 billion. You know how many people's lives can be changed with that? And that's in 1 year. Put 10 years, time it by 2, we're close to $1 trillion. Crazy. So the zakah is one of the miracles, is one of the financial miracles of Islam. I mean it. They have people who studied how it can change and do things. It's ajib. And here's the thing, it's only 2.5%. It doesn't break the back of the person, right? It's not like 30%, 25%, it's just 2.5%. So anyways, they went, the collectors went to pay zakah, and then they kicked them out to those tribes. They said, get out of here, we're not going to give you anything. Then some of them sent a delegation to Sayyidina Abu Bakr. They say, hold on, we want to negotiate. What? You know what? Yeah, we're running tough, we're running low. We can't pay zakah anymore, sorry. He said, so he received them in ihsan, but he said, no, sorry, you're going to have to pay this because this is not mine. You see, the zakah is not Abu Bakr's radiallahu anhu. The zakah is haqqul muslimin, is for the poor of the Muslims. It's not his to say, okay, you don't have to do it. You understand? It's not his to say you don't have to pay it. So then he became very firm and said no. And then famously he said, by Allah, if they did not pay me a baby female goat, I will fight them to get it. See? So anyways, so a lot of those tribes, they left Islam, announced war against the Muslim entity, and they stopped paying zakah. So they literally rebelled against the government. They rebelled against the government. They took up arms. And here's when it's going to get crazier. They didn't only do that, something else happened at the same time. You see, here's a story. About 2 days before the Prophet passed away, he wanted to send some of the Sahaba to show force in northern of Arabia, close to the border of Jordan, that area. So he sent that army under the leadership of Sayyidina Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu. And Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu was about 16 to 17 years old only. And he made him the leader of that army. And guess, you know who's in that army? Sayyidina Umar and his likes. People who are in their 50s and 40s. But he had someone, a teenager who's 17 years old, be the leader of the whole army. Because he had qualities that qualified him for that. So then he told them to go north. But guess what happened? The Prophet ﷺ, after 2 days, passed away. And they didn't know what to do. So they came back to Medina because they're kind of waiting outside of Medina to go. And then Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, we have to send them. Because the Prophet ﷺ wanted that, I want to fulfill his wish. They said, however, you know what happened if we send them? We're going to empty half of Medina or more of its good fighters. We're going to be vulnerable to attack from those tribes, the apostate tribes. He said, I don't know, even if we're going to be dragged in the street, I'm going to still do it. This is the wasiyah of the Prophet ﷺ. So he sent out the army with Sayyidina Usama ibn Zayd, the leader, and they kind of used the forces they had left in Medina to protect Medina. And guess why? Because the news came, those tribes are about to attack. So they didn't only say, oh, we're not paying zakah, and then they rebelled against the government, but what did they say? We're going to attack, and they want to destroy Al-Medina. That's getting real now. So they put forces around the Medina protecting the entrances. And then they attacked in the night. And with the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their wave, the first wave they did was repelled, and they got defeated in it. And then that encouraged the Muslimin to send out more groups throughout all of these areas and take control of it again. And the result that many of those people, these tribes who left Islam, they actually came back. They said, okay, hold on. We got carried over with this whole new prophets thing showing up. You know, we got carried over with that a bit. We've got carried away. That's what I meant to say. So then, the peninsula, Al-Jazira Al-Arabiya, became stable again. But again, that was a very big challenge because Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had to take very big decisions. Are you going to still send the army of Sayyidina Usama ibn Zayd? And are you going to keep the Medina vulnerable? And are you going to be able to defend from the attacks of those apostate tribes? And are you going to be able to establish order again and get the zakah back? So, of course, he appointed many of those small armies he sent out. He appointed some of the top tier Sahaba radiallahu anhu, like Sayyidina Khalid ibn al-Walid. He sent on the head of one group. Another group under the leadership of Sayyidina Amr ibn al-As. Another group under the leadership of Sayyidina Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl. By the way, Sayyidina Ikrimah is the son of Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl died early on, you know, as a ghair Muslim. But Sayyidina Ikrimah became Muslim close to the time of the Fath of Mecca. So he was one of the leaders as well. And then he was able to stabilize the Islam in Arabia. So now it was able to expand northwards towards Syria, towards Iraq. Now, very important challenge that Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had is an incident, one of those battles that took place against the Murtaddeen, the apostates, was called Al-Yamama. And Yamama is the name of that battle. In that battle, there was a large number of Huffaz al-Quran and Qurra got killed. They were shaheed in those battles. Now what? Sayyidina Umar sounded the alarm system. Not the physical one, but you know what I'm saying. He sounded the alarm. He came to Sayyidina Abu Bakr and he said, we have a problem here. What is the problem? He said, you see, we lost a lot of the Huffaz and the Qurra in the Yamama. Okay. And I'm afraid if we don't make sure we have the entire Quran in one place, and with too many of the Qurra getting shaheed or getting killed in that battle, I'm afraid we might miss some of the Quran. And this is a serious matter. The preservation of Quran is one of the most important objectives for this ummah. Absolutely. So then Sayyidina Umar suggested, let's get all of the pages of the Quran that were written, all the pieces of leather, pieces of wood. They used to get it from the trunks of palm tree, cut like a tablet and write on it. They used to use the shoulder blade of camels. So the shoulder blades of camels are pretty big. They use that to write on. They use skin, deer skin, to write on. They use wood, they use bones. So this is how they used to write on things. So he said, let's gather all of this and document it and have it in one place to make sure none of it is going to be lost. Now Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was hesitant. He said, but how can I do something the Prophet ﷺ didn't do? He said, listen to me, it's khayr. What does it mean, it's khayr? Means the Prophet ﷺ would have done it. It is according to his way, to his manhaj. Let's do this. So he went a few times back and forth, and then Sayyidina Abu Bakr warmed up to the idea. So he said, okay, I think you're right, let's do this. But who's going to do this? Who's going to do this task? So they called in Sayyidina Zayd ibn Thabit. Sayyidina Zayd ibn Thabit al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. Sayyidina Zayd was a young man, but a genius. Absolute genius. Sayyidina Zayd ibn Thabit learned Hebrew in 2 weeks. You know why he learned Hebrew? The Prophet ﷺ told him, I'm not sure if those are telling me the right things in Torah. I want you to read what they're saying to make sure they're telling me the right stuff. 2 weeks he learned Hebrew. In like 10 days, he learned how to read and write. Absolute genius. He had the Quran memorized just like if you carve it on stone in his head. And guess what? The last year before the Prophet ﷺ passed away, when Sayyidina Jibreel read with him the Quran entirely, Sayyidina Zayd was there. And he read it on the Prophet ﷺ entirely and got approved. And he had very scary strong memory. So he said, we need this guy to be the head of the project. So they called him in, they said, okay, we have a mission for you. What? They told him, he said, I wish they put a mountain on my shoulder. If they put a mountain on my shoulder, will be less problem for me. Like, this is such a big amana. It's such a big trust. But here's the thing. They made a very strict condition. So they made an announcement. We are going to collect the Quran in one book. If you have any copies of leather, bones, wood tablets, that were written in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ with 2 witnesses who saw it being written in front of the Prophet ﷺ and being approved, you can bring them in. And they made a campaign and they brought in all of those pieces of leather, of tablets, of bones. Now, they didn't need to do that because Sayyidina Zayd ibn Thabit has it all memorized. He can just tell them, okay, write it down. Okay, he'll just lean on a chair and read the whole thing and they'll write it and it's done deal. But no, they wanted to have the physical evidence. So no one later on say, yeah, but maybe he made a mistake, yeah, but. So they made sure every ayah, sometimes like someone will bring a whole surah or 2 surahs or 3 surahs, depend. You know, it doesn't mean it's each ayah is on one page. There's varieties. So they brought it in with 2 witnesses for each piece of parchment or piece of written material. And the ajib thing, that one of the parts, the last 2 ayahs of Surah At-Tawbah, they only found 1 witness. They couldn't find 2. But here's the crazy thing. That witness was Sayyidina Khuzaymah radiallahu anhu. Now, what is special about Sayyidina Khuzaymah? So Sayyidina Khuzaymah was one time with the Prophet ﷺ on a journey, and some guy came and asked the Prophet ﷺ to pay him back some money. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I paid you back. The guy said, no, you didn't. So Sayyidina Khuzaymah, he jumped in and said, no, he did. I saw him. He said, okay, I'm defeated. He left. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ paid him. He's just trying to get some more money, okay? Because again, you have to understand, there were some Arab back then. There were people who, their iman is, they still have some of the Jahiliyyah mind there. So then after the guy went, the Prophet ﷺ told him, how could you say I saw it when you didn't? You were not a witness. You did not see me giving him back the money. This is what he told him. He said, I believe you about the khabar of the sama'. I'm not going to believe you about khabar al-ard. You're telling us this whole Quran is from Allah. I believe you. I'm not going to believe you for like few bucks that you gave the guy. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever Khuzaymah is his witness, that will be enough. Means Sayyidina Khuzaymah has the power of 2 witnesses. And look how ajib. To fulfill for him that honor, that last 2 ayahs of Surah At-Tawbah, which is لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. Those 2 ayahs. So they said, oh, that's him. He has the power of 2. We're good to go. And then Sayyidina Zayd ibn Thabit was comparing what's written with the witnesses with what he has in his memory. But he was not the only hafiz of the entire Quran. There were a lot of other Sahaba, other than the ones who were shaheed in the battle. There were a lot of other Sahaba, who, like Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and many more also memorized the Quran. I think also Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, a lot of them memorized the Quran entirely. So he's not the only reference. Plus, let me tell you something. Quran was not like some hidden thing in a library of specialists. Pay attention to what I'm saying now. Quran was not something just hiding in a library of specialists, and when they're going to study, they pull it off of the shelf, check it, and put it back. Quran was popular. You know what that means? Everyone reads it. Everyone hears it. They hear it in Fajr. They hear it in Maghrib. They hear it in Isha. People read it in the masjid. People saying it. People hearing the tafsir of some of those ayat. People hearing the Prophet commenting on those ayat. Plus, a lot of these ayat had to do with their life. So they saw when they were revealed, why they were revealed, about what. Second thing, the Arabian nation was a nation of oral tradition. So they had strong memories because a lot of them couldn't read and write. So they depended on their memory to keep things preserved. So a lot of them had astounding memories. Like example, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu an, when the Prophet passed away, he was only 10 years old. Okay? But he was kind of like almost a alim at 10 years old. And then he kind of started taking ilm from all of the Sahaba. And then he became a big allama in a very young age. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas. But here's the crazy thing. There was a debate between him and one of the Khawarij. Specifically Nafi' ibn al-Azraq. He was the head of the Azariqa group of Khawarij. Okay? And then one of the poets from Quraysh, his name is Umar ibn Abi Rabi'ah. He came in and he dropped about 90 lines of poetry, read them in front of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas. And then that Nafi' ibn al-Azraq got annoyed. He said, what? We're sitting discussing things and you're sitting listening to poetry? And that poetry is like talking about some, the girl that this guy, the Umar ibn Rabi'ah loves. Like, what the heck? What is this? And he even said this. He said, no, he didn't say it this way. He said, what do you mean? You memorize it? He said, yeah, I can repeat all of the 90 lines. He heard it one time. This is the type of memories they had. A lot of them had this type of memory. They memorized quickly. Actually, till now, they have some countries in Africa, Arab countries in North Africa, that they have the memorizing tradition. that you see people there memorize entire books till today in 2024. Anyways, they didn't have too many distractions too. But anyways, so they have strong memory. So Quran is not like something hidden. People know what Quran is. People hear it. I'll give you an example, not to say it's similar to the Quran in any way, but let's say there's a famous song that everyone knows it in a society. Let's say someone said that song wrong. Wouldn't you have like 10 people jumping saying, hold on, it's not like that, it's like this? Why? Because it's popular, people know it. So when something is popular, you cannot change it easily. See what I'm saying? So anyways, so Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he had that difficult task, which is to collect the Mus'haf. But again, he took that mission, gave it to Sayyidina Zayd ibn Thabit, and Sayyidina Zayd radiallahu anhu did a tremendous job. And all of the copies were kept with Hafsa bint Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhuma. So, radiallahu anha wa an abiha, Sayyidina Umar. So anyways, and the Quran was finally compiled in one book. It was all there. So now they were able to feel relieved that now they were able to copy it. They were able to have it. And then they kept the physical copies for reference if they have to go back to them later. Brothers and sisters, so we don't take too long. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he got all of this done. He laid basically down the foundation to all what's going to come in the Khilafah of Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Uthman, Sayyidina Ali, and beyond. He laid the framework, the foundation. He stabilized the Muslim Ummah and gave it strength. And in only 2 years and 3 months, look what people were able to achieve back then in such a short time with ikhlas, with hard work, with sound iman. It's ajib. In 2 years and 3 months, he was able to achieve all of that. And then Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when he was 63 years old, the same age of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he took a shower and then felt that he had fever and he was sick for like about 15 days. Then he felt that he's not going to make it anymore. So then he suggested to select someone after him as a Khalifa. And then he told them, I am going to fear Allah in my choice and who I think is good for the Ummah. And then he asked multiple Sahaba about Sayyidina Umar, and they all had very high opinion of him, including Sayyidina Uthman, including Sayyidina Ali, including other Sahaba radiallahu anhum jami'an. And then he kind of told them that he wanted, so he informed them. It's either he wrote it in a letter, I think he either wrote it in a letter or said it, that he wanted Sayyidina Umar to be the next Khalifa. Of course, all the Sahaba have to agree and have to give him bay'ah. It's not just like that. But this is what he would suggest, because especially it was a sensitive time that they were just able to stabilize the situation, so they need a stable next Khalifa to come to move things from there. Otherwise, it's going to go back to become a chaos again. So then, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, as I said, after 15 days of being sick, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returned him back to him. And the last thing he said was, Tawaffani Musliman wa alhiqni bis salihin. Make me die as a Muslim and make me one of those salihin. SubhanAllah, look what a powerful last statement to end on. And then, of course, that was the 13th year of Hijrah, and his body was washed by Asma bint Umays radiallahu anhu, who was his wife. And then he left behind 3 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. Radiallahu anhum jami'an, wa radiallahu an Sayyidina Abi Bakr, wa an walidihi, wa an sahabati Rasulillahi ajma'in. Brothers and sisters, as we can see, very amazing figure we talked about before, but also, this is very important, is to have a holistic personality. So not just the personality of the abid and the mu'min, but also the personality of someone who can be a leader and take responsibilities and get things done. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who love the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, who read about them, and who take their good character and try to implement it in our lives, inshallah, and then eventually that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us with them in the akhirah with their leader and our leader Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ameen, ameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And thank you everyone for your sabr and for listening. جزاكم الله خيرا. والحمد لله رب العالمين. بارك الله. آمين وإياكم.